At the extremities of planet Earth are two frozen wastelands, and in Flight Simulator 2020, both are extremely tempting targets for exploration. Unfortunately though, that isn't as easy as it may appear. At the far reaches of the south, we have Antarctica, a continent I will be visiting in just a moment. To the north, the Arctic unfortunately doesn't exist within the sim, much like on Google Earth. It is simply a body of water. However, there are still plenty of opportunities to explore the northernmost regions of Earth, but one of these, of course, is Alaska. Immediately below us is Mcmurdo Field Airport, where I'll be landing after this little trip. But here, in the city of Anchorage, we are spoilt for choice of airports and runways. To the immediate east of the city is Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. There are 3 runways here, and in the real world they need to be frequently de-iced. Fortunately then, the airport has nearly 200,000 gallons of de-icer stored. But as for Flight Simulator, well, Anchorage is a great city to fly over, which is helped immensely by the proximity of the runways. It also makes landing approaches extremely interesting and perhaps also a little tricky for pilots who don't have vast amounts of flight experience. Now, depending upon your knowledge of the local region, you may be surprised to hear that Anchorage is not a photogrammetry city in Flight Simulator 2020. Yet even still, it manages to look truly fantastic. And if you do happen to fly over this way, make sure you also take the opportunity to fly here at night. You can't really visit Alaska without also visiting its famous mountains. You've probably noticed by now that the type, style and formation of mountains varies massively in the new Microsoft Flight Simulator. Most match their real-world counterparts extremely well, and the sheer diversity of different geological formations means that nearly everywhere will look different. In fact, even moving from location to location within a single state like Alaska will highlight this point. Here, I'm not too far from the Denali National Park. The mountains might look a little too rounded in some places, but all in all, it's a wonderful area. In my opinion then, Alaska, and especially Anchorage, really do highlight what makes Flight Simulator such an amazing sim. Here, I'm on the approach to Mcmurdo Field Airport. It's an interesting place to land for sure. In fact, I'm not going to show the full landing here, as approaches and landings such as this are going to be in a special future video. So, now that we've looked at one of the northernmost areas of the planet, it's time to head down south and have a look at this rather large continent here, Antarctica. Now, at this time of the year, July, it's winter down in the southern hemisphere, and that of course means that Antarctica is pretty much perpetually in the dark. Fortunately, we can change the time of the year. We're going to head back to January, maybe even December here, and well, there we are, summer, it's all alight. Antarctica is of course a large area, but there's not many airfields here. Fortunately, there are a few, but they're rather hard to see, so unless you know the identifier code for the particular airport, then you may want to look for them manually. To do so, we've put on the IFR filter, removing the satellite terrain. Makes the little targets a little bit easier to find. Here then is Mcmurdo Station, a research outpost situated on Ross Island. The sim placed my plane a fair old way from the research station, however, in what felt a little like the middle of nowhere. Now, I feel it's only reasonable at this point to point out that Antarctica isn't very well represented in Flight Simulator 2020. The obvious reason for this is the distinct lack of available satellite imagery. If you take a look at both Google Maps and Bing Maps, mapping data is largely unavailable on both of these. However, some does exist on the outer edges of the continent, particularly in places like this, near known research stations. Elsewhere, the region is largely as you would expect, a wide open, barren, frozen wasteland. There's little to nothing here, which is the entire point really. However, maybe due to the lack of satellite data, or maybe due to other technical reasons, Antarctica is full of issues such as textures that fail to load and lower resolution scenery. This is especially noticeable on mountains. In the end though, I really don't think this is a huge loss. There's little to nothing to see here anyway, but it is going to be an obvious point of interest for many. Of course, this isn't a complaint, far from it. It's simply an observation, a factual one. It is what it is. And the counterpoint of all of this is just how amazing all the other areas on the planet look. We saw that in Alaska just now. It's very, very nice, and it's far from the only frozen region on the planet. There's certainly plenty of other places to explore as well, such as northern Canada and Siberia. So, whilst Antarctica is far from perfect, I really don't see this as much of an issue. As Alaska here shows, there are plenty of other gorgeous locations. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.